welcome everyone. How's it going? How's it going? This is the Conscious Chicano. Welcome to Conscious Chat number 41. This is a movie review on a movie called Sound of Freedom. I actually just saw it yesterday, and it's a really good movie. And I actually, you know, um, recommend that people go out and see this, especially you brown folks out here, because it deals with you know, a lot of our people. Um, and so, just let you guys know if you haven't seen this film, it might be a little a spoiler. You know, it's like a spoiler in the sense where I might talk a lot about this movie, so you're gonna um, know a lot about it before even seeing it. Spoiler alert. So, um, but it's still, even if you listen to this video and you go and watch the movie, it's good to have a certain perspective in mind too, especially a brown conscious perspective. Because a lot of people that are usually going to go and see this movie are usually like Republicans, you know, usually those type of people. But I suggest that people out here, especially you brown folks, go and watch it, whether you're Republican or Democrat or in the middle or you're just apolitical. You'll learn some good information from this movie. Um, and I've actually listened to the people involved in this movie, Sound of Freedom. And matter of fact, there's a Mexican producer and director of this film, and so I've actually listened to one of them, and he's I think he's one of them's trying to run for president of Mexico. He is conservative, and as like I say, like the way I am is like depending on the issue. There's times where I'm, conservative. There's times where I'm liberal. There's times where I'm in the middle or just don't have a position on it. So depends on the issue. But on this whole issue, the issue here in this Sound of Freedom is on sex trafficking. And this is where the conservatives are very good at exposing such things. You don't hear a lot of liberals and Democrats talking about this stuff, but the Republicans and conservatives are good on exposing sex trafficking and that whole industry. So, and this is what this whole movie is all about. Um, so, sex trafficking going on in a lot of brown countries, so-called Latin America, um, and the United States, and also worldwide, globally. Um, it's a it's a global issue, and it's like this film is exposing a lot of this stuff here. Um, so I guess let me get into this movie. Um, maybe into some history too, because I bumped into this whole issue as I was studying a lot of history, decolonial history, and everything. Maybe I should go into that first. So, reading books like American Holocaust by David E. Stannard, the other slavery and all that stuff. I actually, there's a good book called The Other Slavery, and it talks about the indigenous slavery. Um, and what I like about the author is that the author doesn't romanticize the whole issue and just blame white folks for slavery of indigenous people. It does mention that in pre colonization times, the natives did have slaves, um, and there was a network of slavery, and slavery existed throughout time, throughout history. um, it's an unfortunate fact about humanity. um, I think there's even a Stanford professor, African American guy. He has a whole chapter on this whole slavery issue. Trying to remember his name. Shoot, it's been a while, but he actually talks about was it Doctor? Is it Sowell? Something like that. So, but he actually talks about slavery, and a lot of African Americans like to blame the white man for slavery, but slavery existed even. I mean, the Arabs enslaved Africans, and Africans enslaved each other, and this and that. The same phenomena even occurs even with in that book, like the other slavery, where indigenous people enslaved each other as well. Um, and obviously, what happens in slavery is people get trafficked. That's what happens. There's sex trafficking that occurs, and that's what happens. And it's an evil, um, activity of humanity. And what? Oh, it's Doctor Sowell. And what matter of fact, he even mentions that slavery. Interesting is that it was Christianity that actually ended slavery institutionally. Of course, there was so-called Christians that enslaved people, especially natives out here. Um, but they also eradicated it as well and got rid of it after they gained some consciousness, and saying, "Hey, this is not right. This is not good," um, and acknowledge the humanity of Africans and indigenous people. Um, but we also need to stop romanticizing natives too, because they did enslave each other. Um, and they did have concubines, so there obviously was, in a sense, sex trafficking in pre-colonial times. Um, I don't think it was as rampant though, because when the Europeans, when they colonized Africa and the Americas, they kind of like put the sex industry and slavery on steroids. It became a global phenomenon, like bigger than any other existing, um, network in previous times. But yeah, obviously when I studied history and anthropology, you do find that even like the Mexicas, they did have concubines, and you know, but the question is was it as brutal as what's going on right now? In modern times with the sex industry. Um, concubines at times back then were able to, um, in a sense, inherit, the wealth at times, or become free. They weren't always being treated in a brutal way and everything. But I'm not advocating none of that. Just mentioning that the fact is that it did exist in pre-colonial times, um, and it's just humanity stained with sin in some sense, from a Christian perspective, But when you read books like American Holocaust and the other slavery, it does mention that when the Europeans came to these lands, they kind of like made institutionalized slavery in a way that it was like the worst ever in humanity. If you actually think about the indigenous Holocaust is the worst Holocaust of all Holocausts put together. So just imagine how much sex trafficking was occurring. The Europeans were enslaving indigenous women and little girls and little boys and all that, capturing them, taking kids away from native families, and trafficking them and sex trafficking um, and they were creating concubines and all that stuff, and it could have ranged from underage concubines. I know Columbus and all that was found to be have been doing that kind of stuff, and the Spaniards as well. Um, so that has had occurred, in colonial times, and and you got to understand, even to this very day, how that even evolved to what the modern sex trafficking industry, how it has came about in modern times. It has a long history, and eventually, gradually became worse and worse and worse throughout time, and especially when it came to colonization and everything. So, and what I've discovered, I remember reading American Holocaust. This was a long time ago, trying to recall all the information, the facts. But every time the Europeans set up like a military base, uh, they basically forced the surrounding women and girls into prostitution. And so this is why you go to different military bases, like especially like if you go to like American military bases, like you'll hear about prostitution, right? Prostitutes around the military bases. You see that in Hawaii and San Diego, aka TJ. You go to Asian countries and all that. Every time there's a military base, you find prostitution going on. And guess what? What is occurring with prostitution is sex trafficking. That's what's happening. And so, during colonization, they created an industry of, they created a demand, for sex trafficking, and that's what has occurred, and and that's what's happening right now. So, just for you guys to understand a little history. So the colonizers definitely made a big industry of demand, and it's also for money as well, and for sex as well, and sex, and it's not only just sex trafficking; it's also organ harvesting too in modern times, where you know um, people are captured, especially little boys and little girls or women, and they're captured, and they're murdered, um, and their organs are sold in the black market and stuff like that. And sometimes a lot of the medical field is connected to this kind of stuff. Um, and it's even, I mean, this stuff is so connected everywhere, with the elites. A lot of the elites with money, you know are involved in this, secret societies. I was actually listening to that guy, the guy who was in the Sound of Freedom, the Tim, I even forgot his name, Tim something, the main actor, the real actor. I mean, not the main actor, but the real guy, behind it. And he, let me get his. Actually, I can't even look it up because I'm on my Instagram and YouTube at the same time. So, anyways, Tim something. Just look him up. Um, I forgot his last name, but anyways, um, yeah, he's there's a lot of information that he talks on. He has different discussions. You can find him on YouTube and Rumble and everything. And he talks about a lot of stuff, what he witnessed. And actually, there's going to be another film they're coming out with in more depth and in more detail than this movie. Um, and he says that he went to Africa and he saw actually the at times, I guess he either witnessed this, I witnessed it, or seen footage, but he was like a guy who worked for the for the government, and basically he was convicting going after sex traffickers and pedophiles in Latin America and other, I mean, I guess globally. And he went to Africa and he found out that they were doing what's it called, ritual sacrifice in some sense, and they were doing stuff like what's it called, drinking, I guess rituals of what's called adrenochrome. If you guys don't know what adrenochrome is that they they sacrifice their victims, and what happens is when there's a state of fright, your adrenaline ends up like increasing, and what happens is they want the blood that's full of adrenaline, and their belief is in these secret societies is that that gives them either power or youth, more energy, right? And a lot of these secret societies are into that kind of stuff, adrenochrome. And I discovered this goes back to ancient times too. I from I actually concluded a lot of these elites around the world, all the way back in ancient times to this very day, were into some satanic stuff, and they were involved in this ritual type sacrifice. And in modern times, you have like the skull and bones, secret societies, and there's they say that they drink blood from the skulls of certain people in history who were powerful, and they believe that by drinking the blood, or doing a ritual sacrifice and drinking the blood from a skull, gave them power, and so the Skull and Bones secret society would, they say they have Geronimo's skull, and me, I have Apache ancestry, and this is one thing that I found out is that that the Skull and Bones Secret Society of Yale University, I think it was Yale, yeah, something like that. Um, they have Geronimo's skull, they say, um, and they deny it, but many people say that they do, and I think there were even there was a lawsuit in the past onto recovering the skull of Geronimo. And so what they would do is a ritual sacrifice, and they would drink they say the blood from Geronimo's skull, and this is where they wanted power, the power, because Geronimo was a great warrior, right? And so these skull and bones secret societies, they believe in doing a ritual sacrifice of drinking the blood from the skull of Geronimo, and they also say they have Pancho Villa's skull as well. So these secret societies are into dark, evil stuff out here, and so adrenochrome is very similar, to that what I just described. And from my studies of anthropology as well, you'll find many ancient societies, especially the elites. And I'm not saying the common person was doing this, but a lot of these elites were into some satanic stuff. Um, if you just joined me, welcome, welcome. I'm doing a Sound of Freedom movie review, and I'm doing a presentation on YouTube as well as Instagram. And after the presentation, you can come and join me if you want to discuss this on YouTube. I put a link on my comment section on YouTube so you can click on it and join in the discussion if you want to contribute to this whole topic. But it's a movie review on Sound of Freedom, and I'm getting even deeper because Sound of Freedom does expose some stuff, but from my studies of secret societies and anthropology and human civilization, you do find a common thread going on, and it's satanic. It's a satanic elitist agenda that has been going on throughout human history, and it has evolved to what we have now to this very day. And um, and so, back to the adrenochrome, I was touching upon that. The adrenochrome, I think it's Tim something. I forgot his last name, but he says he witnessed the demand for adrenochrome in Africa, and and this was in one of his discussions on his movie, and he reveals even more in his discussions. If you go on YouTube and type of Sound of Freedom, like you'll find him talking more in depth on what he has discovered, and it's gruesome. It's a dark topic. It's evil, and it's humanity. There's evil out there. If you guys don't believe in evil, for some of you atheists and agnostics or Easterners and everything, if you don't want to believe in evil, you better go see this movie and even dig deep into this topic, because that is evil. If you want to deny that this evil, there's something wrong with you. You have no conscience, right? Anyways, so back to the whole adrenochrome stuff. So I've studied a lot of anthropology, and I came across that even amongst the Mexicas, they had a belief that in a sense, cannibalism in some sense. And it's not just the Mexicas; it's people globally. It's a lot of the elites, and I'm not saying all the Mexicas believe this. The Macehuales, the common people, didn't usually practice what the elites were doing, but the elites believed that they would capture someone powerful, right? And they would capture and do a ritual sacrifice, and the key is to whoever you capture that's powerful, that they would do a ritual sacrifice to them and drink their blood or even eat their body parts. And and it could have been a warrior, a famous powerful warrior, or some kind of elite ruler or something like that. Um, and the belief is that they would absorb their energy and become very powerful as well. And so you see this common thread. See, I'm very critical. You guys think I'm just critical of just the colonizers and everything, but I'm critical of evil, even if it exists amongst our own people too, because evil is universal, and it's definitely people practice what they call the dark arts out here, and there's a lot of this stuff going on. And so the Sound of Freedom movie explores the tip of the iceberg, right? And and it's a good movie. I suggest you guys go out and see it. And it's way worse than actually what the movie actually presents. But I like the movie. It touches on the topic. It's gonna educate people on this issue. I think people need to dig deeper and get into this stuff, because it's really dark and gruesome. and there's evil out there, and it's in high places too. It's the rich, the elites, who are doing all this stuff for cash, for money, for organ harvesting, for ritual sacrifice, satanic, secret societies and all that stuff, for pedophilia. Uh, there's a lot of evil going on with this whole industry, and so the movie is really good. It exposes a lot of stuff. It's spoiler alert. If you, I mean, even if you hear my comments, it's still good to go see the movie, and you'll have a certain perspective in mind. But it starts off exposing some pedophile, and he's like an author, and and I guess this guy Tim, I guess he was working for the government, and they were out, basically trying to capture pedophiles and sex traffickers. And I guess they set up a website or something like that, and I guess it's like if someone downloads that child pornography, it locates their IP address and everything. So they would catch people, those pedophiles who would download that stuff, and so what happens is they capture this one guy. He's like an author, and then what else happens? He goes to jail, and I guess the guy Tim wants to find out. He kind of befriends the pedophile, and he talks to him, right, and wants to get information. And so that pedophile, he reveals the sex trafficking network, and what happens is it's he discovers a lot of stuff, that's going on in so-called Latin America, and what else? He discovers it's a lot of Americans too. A lot of Americans are going to Latin America, and what they do is they hire people in Latin America um, to they create a demand for sex trafficking for children, for little girls, little boys, women, and they pay them off, right? The Americans pay them off, and these are the rich elites that are doing this stuff, and it's white Americans mainly too, and so they go and pay off some of you know um, these brown folks in Latin America, and these criminal thugs and drug, probably possibly even um, drug traffickers and sex traffickers, and it's like there's an industry, where they make a lot of money. So they go along with that and get paid off by the, white Americans who have cash. And so what they do is they go and kidnap, little girls, little boys, and even women. They target them. And there's a lady. There's an actual. It's a true, based on a true story, and the lady is that's actually involved in recruiting the kids. Um, I think she was a Miss. What is it, Miss? Um, I think Miss Colombia or something like that. But they're like in Honduras, and she talks to the parents and lures, it persuades the parents to leave their kids at a motel to do, I guess, kind of like, what's it called, they do like modeling and taking pictures and all that, and they tell the parents, oh, you could pick them up like later on in the day, just leave them with us. And so it's a room full of kids, boys and girls, and so they start taking pictures of them, and then they're basically taking pictures of them to these pictures are actually going to the pedophiles or sex traffickers, and I guess they present those pictures to them, and they it's kind of like a sales, like they're selling them in some sense, and they give their pictures to those pedophiles and sex traffickers, and and so they take pictures of them and all that, and what happens is I guess they take off with them, persuade them that they're going to go to, I don't know, some good place or something. They persuade the kids, and then when the parents, the parent comes back, there's this one parent. He's, I guess he's there. He's from Honduras, and he goes back to for his children, some little girl and little boy, and at a certain time, I think it's like 7 p.m. or something, and he goes to the motel, and they're not there, and he finds out that they took his children, and it's a sad story, but this happens a lot in a lot of third world countries, especially in so-called Latin America, Mexico, Honduras, Colombia, all kinds of places, and so he finds out that his kids were kidnapped, and and so um, so that's what happens. They lured them in, and then they end up sex trafficking these kids, and and I guess Tim, that guy Tim, he ends up befriending that one pedophile um, that went to jail, and he ends up talking to him, and I guess they're looking, I guess, for that that little. I guess he was trying to befriend the guy, and basically his goal was to act like he wanted to purchase the kids, or something like that, and but his goal was to free them from sex trafficking and everything. And so yeah, how's it going? Casual conversation. How's it going, everyone, on my Instagram as well? Um, you know, Bonita, and there's several other people showing up. But yeah, go see that movie. It's really good. So back to the Tim. What he's trying to do is, he's trying to find out. He's trying to infiltrate the whole sex trafficking pedophile network. And eventually he comes across the father, and he wants to find out where his kids are. And so by infiltrating that whole industry, he ends up uh, befriending that pedophile guy, and the pedophile guy leads him to the little boy, and so he sets up a thing where he's gonna act like he's gonna purchase the little boy, I guess, at the border, and so this fat white guy comes in, and he's driving in with the little boy, for the transaction, and so Tim basically sets him up and arrests the fat white guy, American white guy, and arrests him, and then the little boy is basically freed from sex trafficking, and then he talks to the little boy, and the little boy talks about how he was that he was sent to TJ, and it seems like in TJ, like, people know TJ for having hookers and prostitution, but there's also sex trafficking there too. Um, and the little boy mentioned that basically he was sent to this, I guess, this madam, I guess a woman who's in charge of prostitution and sex trafficking, and I guess the little boy was, became the I guess the he was forced into pedophile prostitution and homosexual prostitution too, because if you think about a little boy, so it's like and nobody wants to even talk about this either. Is there's also this whole, homosexual type shit going on too. Excuse my language, man, but all this stuff it's just you find out what's going on in this world is it just upsets you. Um but the little boy is forced into you know prostitution, you know and so eventually what happened is that the guy Tim acts like he was gonna purchase him, but he ends up freeing him. And so he just talks to this little boy about what was going on and where's your sister and this and that, because his sister got kidnapped as well, and they eventually try to find the sister as well, the little girl. And what Tim's strategy is to set up kind of like what is it called? He talks to some cartel guy in Latin America, but this cartel guy, interesting is what he does is basically he has so much money that he purchases these kids in Latin America, not to not for pedophilia or sex trafficking, but to free them. So he kind of infiltrates the sex trafficking in Latin America. And I'm not actually promoting any cartel stuff and everything. I know that whole thing is corrupt as well. But at least this guy he's over there purchasing the kids to free them, and it's very similar to even what the Native Americans used to do. Like, they say that supposedly Native Americans enslaved African Americans, but actually, when they would purchase African Americans, they would actually free them, and it was like kind of like a tactic, to free, slaves. Um, but this is what Tim was, his goal was to set up. He connected with some famous real estate guy who had cash, and so he wanted to make a deal. I mean, this guy was into good causes, that real estate guy, and so he had money. So the guy was trying to, I mean, they set up a deal with, hey, let's set up like I guess like a big place where, it's supposedly for prostitution and sex trafficking, but it was just it was kind of like wasn't really that, it's kind of like basically to get all the kids, and all people who are being sex trafficked into one place and to free them, and to capture the sex traffickers and pedophiles and all that. So they set up something like that, and so they basically get the whole what is it called, the main sex traffickers who took those kids, those you know and they got like a bunch of kids. They were, a lot of kids were being sex trafficked all into one place, like, and eventually it was like a sting operation, and they end up arresting the sex traffickers. And interesting is that some of the sex traffickers, one of them was a lawyer. He was a homosexual pedophile, and he was involved in that. And I guess this is all a true story too. So it's interesting stuff of who's involved and everything. And Tim actually had discussion. He says you'll be surprised. Like, there's so many people involved in this. He says it's like it's just crazy. Like, you have people, all kinds of different people from different walks of life involved in this, um, evil industry, and so they end up, you know, arresting those sex traffickers and everything. But then they don't find the girl that they're looking for, and so eventually, they find out that the girl was trafficked to, I guess, the rebels, of South America. Here's my critique, though. Here's my critique. Um, and I'm not defending rebels in Latin America, but I do say that I'm not too sure about all their details because I know certain rebels in Latin America may be communists, and certain rebels are pro-indigenous for the indigenous land. But the rebels that were mentioned in this movie seem like I they seem like they were corrupt, and I think it's wrong to think that all rebels are corrupt because, for example, the Zapatistas, EZLN, they're considered rebels, right? They fight for indigenous land. They're not into that kind of stuff, drug dealing, sex trafficking, this and that. Therefore, they're into indigenous sovereignty, protection of indigenous land. So, but I would be careful because some of these Republicans at times, or even white liberals, they use this, the feminism, sex trafficking. They'll discover something evil in another country, right? But this is their excuse to go and justify destroying the country and taking it over, robbing them of resources, and and they're claiming they're freeing people, right? So this is my little critique of some of the Republican agendas out here, or even the white liberal agendas. So, but I think, okay, if Tim is authentic about this, and and I think he is, I think he is because he's freeing these kids from sex trafficking and all that, and these women and everything, and props to that, props to that. But also be aware is that there also is a Republican agenda too, because I see him kind of tying it to the rebels. They're tying it to the border issue, and so in a sense, it's like, okay, I hope his agenda is not to go out and to okay, justify, oh, we need to go topple this country because there's sex trafficking there, or we need to, I've heard some of the anti-immigrant positions too from some of the people involved with him, especially Glenn. I think it was Glenn Beck at times where I've heard him being anti-immigrant at times. Typical Republicans. As you know, I'm not anti-immigrant. I believe in indigenous. All this land is indigenous land. The colonizers set up their phony colonial borders and everything. But what happens is they'll mention there's sex trafficking on the border, but then their goal is to create to close the borders and to create anti-immigrant hysteria. So I'm aware of that, but I'm also aware of what's going on with the liberals right now with Biden. There's something fishy going on where he's just letting all of these immigrants coming in, and there's some fishy stuff going on where all of a sudden you're starting to hear that people at the border are like kids are just vanishing and they don't know where they're going at and all stuff like that. So there's without a doubt sex trafficking going on at the border, um, and um, you know there's no doubt that there's sex trafficking at the border, but I don't think because of that issue that we should be anti-immigrant as well. Um, so the whole border issue is like, okay, I'm critical of it as well. Um, there, I think it's wrong with like people like Trump come out and say, "Oh, Mexicans, they're the people crossing the border are thugs and drug dealers and pedophiles and they're full of diseases and this and that." I think that's wrong. Sex traffickers, right? I think it's wrong to paint all immigrants as that because there's some good, hardworking immigrants that come and work on these lands, the agricultural system, the cooks, they build the infrastructure of this land. And even the United States has a whole history of that, of inviting them over here. And then after they're done, finished with them, they want to kick them out. And then they invite them back and they use them again, they kick them out. and they do all this hard work in building this nation, but yet they don't want them to become citizens, and they give Mexicans and Central Americans a harder time to become citizens. And matter of fact, Europeans and all these other people are given an easier time to become citizens. So there's issues with this border, but there is also sex trafficking. There is definitely bad stuff going on at the border as well. Um, you know, there's stuff. Sex trafficking is a reality at the border as well, and it's like they like to just blame Mexicans or Central Americans or the coyotes, right? But and yeah, the coyotes are involved in some bad stuff as well. But the United States creates that demand, pays them off. They created that industry, and so the film does go into that. Sound of Freedom does mention that. He and I actually listened to Tim. He says it's mostly Americans are going down to Latin America, so-called Latin America, and creating this industry and the demand, and they're motivating the people down there who are in poverty and paying them off to go and kidnap kids and sell them, into these sex trafficking industries. And so we have to get to exposing that too. And so definitely they target our communities, And what I like about Tim though is he mentions that it's you think is bad in Latin America or third world countries, but he says the number one nation in sex trafficking is the United States. I would actually I think he should have done more in exposing the sex trafficking out here in the United States. There's a lot of it going on, and you'll be surprised. It's if you actually think about all these massage parlor places and all that, all these Asians, I'm not saying all Asians, but I mean, there's some legit massage places, but there's a lot of, I believe there's a lot of happy endings, right? Sex trafficking going on there as well. Um, you'll find, I mean, I mean, I'm sure it's all over the place, in the United States, and especially where all the rich people are at, and you know, um, you'll be surprised. Like it's all around you, and so I think the film should have highlighted that a lot more. Um, and I mean it gets deep. It gets deep. I mean this even relates to the whole Epstein issue. It relates to a lot of things. Now some people try to dismiss Tim and say that he's a conspiracy theorist, or he's like what's it called, QAnon. I heard him actually respond to that whole thing, and he says that he's not QAnon. He says there's QAnon that are actually against him, and I have actually heard some guys, I guess the Getty type people, there's this whole conspiracy community about the Getty Museum and stuff like that. I haven't looked into all the details about it, so I'm not going to really dismiss their point of view. But the Getty type community says that there's supposedly underground passageways at the Getty Museum, and there's a lot of sex trafficking going on, similar to like Epstein, but I think it's even worse. I think that's what they're saying. And interesting is that you do have like what Beverly Hills around that area, so I wouldn't doubt that there is sex trafficking and a lot of these rich people in Beverly Hills and all that. There's stuff going on there, because um, you know, I mean, what I remember, I used to work around that area, and I would see like these maids and stuff like that, and I'm wondering if something, there's been, kind of like maids at times are seen as sexual objects at times. That's why you have like people like Arnold Schwarzenegger getting a maid pregnant and this and that. And I don't know. I just kind of, you know, I'm not saying Arnold Schwarzenegger is, into sex trafficking, but there's something fishy going on, especially in these rich communities. Um, I wouldn't doubt that there's sex trafficking, but I heard from the Getty people that that they don't like Tim. They're saying he's controlled opposition and everything. And um, I noticed that they have their own little, cult following, and they want to claim that they're the only ones that are to expose sex trafficking, and they're the only heroes and all that. So I'm kind of skeptical of what their agenda is, but I'm sure they do expose the sex industry as well. So I'm not dismissing everything what these Getty people talk about. But Tim as well. I mean, I may not agree with his some of the people that he's linked up with, especially the anti-immigrant Republicans, and maybe some of the United States agenda to subvert certain countries. But I do like that the fact that the United States established like kind of like international law, where if before Americans would go down there and and do crimes against children and women, and they wouldn't get convicted. But now it's like, okay, now there's an international law where they could get convicted, and the government can go down there and arrest them. So that's good that that's happening. Um, and so it's man, this whole issue is like, it's just a web, it's a network, of corruption, and is intertwined with the elites, the establishment, the government, the powerful, the rich. I remember the UK. There was um, a lot of stuff like that, sex trafficking, pedophilia occurring in the UK with the royals and all that, and you got this whole Epstein issue, and it's so much. And I was listening to Tim, and he was saying, yeah, this even relates to the whole LGBTQ stuff, where they're trying to sexualize children. They're trying to create like a sexual community where they want to incorporate children, and they're over here trying to teach children about sexual ideologies, especially with these LGBTQ books, and these teachers trying to impose their sexual lifestyles on the children, and this is intertwined with that as well. And this even leads to the whole transgenderism and all that stuff, the hormone therapy and the surgery and all that stuff. Um, but yeah, definitely this whole movie exposes a lot, and he's gonna come out with a documentary in more details about it, because it's even worse. He's talked about how he's seen films, so many films on what has been happening, and it's gruesome, it's traumatizing, and it's just horrific. And it's just it's just pretty bad out here. And interesting, he says that I guess the main actor mentioned that um, if he invited other actors to be in this movie, they didn't want to, because they were in fear of their reputation, that they wouldn't be able to get a job. Um, and it's, because the Hollywood industry is involved in this kind of crap too. And this kind of satanic, industry and everything. So that's why some people were, and it took them a long time. It was hard for them to even get this film out there. So I actually, suggest that you guys go out and promote this film on your social media. Tell your family, friends, go watch it. It's worth it, because there's a lot of corruption going on out here. and you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised. It's just it runs deep, and and they're targeting our communities. They're targeting the brown communities. That's what they're doing. You know, these they're capturing the children, the women, the children, the little boys, you know, and they're doing all that, you know. And let me tell you this, I was almost a victim of child kidnapping when I was a kid, you know, and this is why I'm actually you know, very passionate about this whole thing. You know, I remember as a kid I was walking from school and there was this guy just pulled over, and this was like several blocks away from my house. And I just came out of school, and I was a little boy at that time, and and all of a sudden there's this guy that pulled over, and he opened his door, he right near me, and he said, "Come here, little boy. Come here, little boy." You know, like he I forgot what exactly he said, but he's trying to lure me into his vehicle. And my instinct was, I just ran and bailed. I got out of there. I ran, and I was like, "Damn, there's some guy trying to kidnap me," you know. And so I was like, after that, I was like paranoid even walking from school, you know. So this shit is real, you know. This is real. And if you actually think about it, you know, they were trying to sex traffic me, or probably even, you know, who knows what, you know, as a little boy, and it didn't happen, right? And good thing I had good instincts, and I was aware of that, and I just ran off as a kid. And and if you think about it, it's like, even that's like homosexual pedophilia, you know. If you think about it, what are they even trying to do, like trying to kidnap a little boy and stuff like that. It's just, it's a sick world out here, you know. So I have encountered that, and it's in this, and it was in the brown community, you know. Now, this is unfortunate, you know, that this stuff even exists and everything, but it's out there, you know. And if you can, you know, definitely, um, you know, if you have kids, you know, protect them, keep an eye on them. You know, there's, you know, that I seen footage of going around, even like on the news and everything. Even out here, where I live, out here in Los Angeles, the San Fernando Valley, there was footage of, you know, big old grown guys just even kidnapping women. They would pull up in a, like a van, and just, you know, just out in daylight, just start grabbing women and just throwing them in the vehicle, you know. So women and children, you guys got to watch out here, you know, protect yourself and be on guard, and look around your surroundings. And sometimes it's I see women late at night just walking around like nothing, you know, like 12, 11 o'clock at night, just walking around with their headphones and everything, acting like, oh, you know, it's like, man, what the heck? It's just crazy. But I used to see a woman sometimes be jogging late at night, and I was always thinking, man, she needs to be careful out here. And it's like, you know, I live in the hood, you know, and it's like, man, it's just, that's not a good thing, you know. And so women out here, they think they're safe, you know, but all it takes is for a couple guys to just roll up on them, you know, and sometimes they'll have a gun, you know. And what are you gonna do about it? You can't do nothing, right? They kidnap you, right? So that stuff like that, it happens, you know. So just be more on guard and keep an eye out, you know, your surroundings, even in daylight and at night, you know. Protect your children, keep an eye on them. Um, it's just crazy, you know. Learn some self defense too. You know, I've heard of stories where women were kidnapped, and because a woman used some self defense, she was able to fight off her kidnapper and everything. So go learn some self defense, out there. Uh, you know, like stuff like combat martial arts and all that, street martial arts and all that. Um, Definitely. Carry some legal self defense weapons. Like pepper spray and you know um, I know that you can even carry a legal knife on you. um, make sure it's a legal size. Just check your state and everything. But definitely, be aware of your surroundings and don't trust people out there when you're walking around. I'm not saying to live in paranoia, but just be aware of your surroundings. Um, so, anyways, I guess I'm gonna end it here. Go out and see that. Actually, I'm not gonna end it here. I'm gonna just take respond to some questions and comments if you have any. But go and check out Sound of Freedom and you know Sound of Freedom is pretty good. It exposes this whole topic, the sex trafficking, the pedophilia, and it's also you know it's even like they target our brown communities. So be aware of that brown community. You're out here watching this video. Be aware that they're targeting our communities. They're trafficking our women, our kids, and all that. And so just be aware of that. What's going on out here? You know, raise this issue. Talk about it. Tell your family. Spread this. Invite them to see this movie, Sound of Freedom. Um, anyways, let's see here. I'm gonna go on my Instagram and try to respond, and then I'll respond to other people's comments on YouTube as well. So, man, there's a lot of people that showed up today. Let's see here. Um, so, how's it going, Padres for Freedom? I see you on Instagram. Thanks for the hi. Hello. Yeah, definitely. Bonita Falls. She says demons. Yeah, it's demonic. All that is demonic. Yes, she says it's an awesome movie. Yep. And she also says, so glad you're talking about it. Yeah, definitely. You go talk about it as well. I want everyone that's watching this go and talk about this issue. Tell your loved ones, people around you, talk about this issue, man. It needs more awareness and exposure. Um, Definitely. Um, Bonita Falls says they target minority communities. Yep, yes they do. They target minority, low income communities. That's what it is. Um, yeah. So yeah, she says Tim is legit and he's the real deal. Yeah, you know what? I commend him. I commend him for definitely you know capturing those pedophiles and freeing the kids and everything. That needs to be, that's great. That's an honorable work. He even gave up his career for that. He could have had, he could have lived in comfortably, and could have had a good retirement and everything. Millions of dollars, and so he gave that up to you know to basically fight for this cause and everything. So honorable cause right there. And I think everyone can get involved in this too as well, especially you brown folks. You need to get involved in more of this stuff too. Let's see here. Anybody else? Oh, let's see here. Um, yeah, so yeah, definitely. I guess that's it right there. Let me go to my YouTube. How's it going? Casual conversation. I'm not too sure if you're still here. Um, let's see here. So you said you're on your way to go watch it. Yes, go watch it. Definitely. Go watch it. Support the cause. Um, you know. I promoted it everywhere, definitely. Anyways, let's see here. So she mentions, she goes, our families were immigrants and they are all good people. Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with you. Not all of them were drug dealers or sex traffickers or pedophiles or people with diseases and all that stuff. Yeah, Trump is ridiculous when he kind of like stereotyped everybody as such. Uh, there's actually some good traditional, hardworking Mexicans, Central Americans out here. So I think we had to make distinctions, and we can't say everyone that comes across the border are bad and evil people. Let's see here. Let's see. Um, she casual conversation says yes, me too. I remember the guy that tried to take me like a picture in my mind. Oh yeah, wow, crazy. Yeah, so this happens, and it's probably happens quite frequently in these low income brown communities or people of color out here. Um, you know, like I said earlier, I was almost a victim of sex trafficking, or you know, when I was a kid. Some gay guy or something was trying to abduct me, trying to kidnap me, and I just like took off and ran. And this was when I was a little boy, and this happened like in the '80s and stuff like that. Um, Back then, it wasn't like now. People are more aware of this kind of stuff, but back then, people were like not really. It was not really well known back then. Anyways, let's see here. Um, oh shoot. Anyways, yeah, I just had a little bug that landed on my table. uh, Anyways, yeah, this is an example, casual conversation that you even almost got kidnapped. That's crazy, And so if you almost got kidnapped and I almost got kidnapped, it just tells you that this is an issue. This is a problem out here. It's just terrible, what's going on out here. And we gotta push more awareness for this kind of issue, and it exists. It exists, and we need to definitely get involved and talk about this issue, expose it, and yeah, it's just support, movies like this, Sound of Freedom. Anyways, well, I guess I'm gonna end it here. You guys get a chance, go see that movie, Sound of Freedom. So it's just the tip of the iceberg. It's way worse than you actually even know about. Um, that whole underground black market it's just crazy. Like they harvest organs, they sex traffic. It happens even in war. I know Mel Gibson's gonna be coming out with a 4-part documentary too. Be on the lookout for that one too. He's gonna come out with it, so he's gonna expose a lot of stuff too. Look into that pedophile, sex trafficking. Like Epstein, that whole issue. Look up on Whitney Webb. She talks about all that stuff, man. She exposes the whole networks there, and they still don't want to reveal who the clients were. They have the black book and everything, and it's people in power. There's a lot of famous people that rode Epstein's you know plane and stuff like that, and a lot of big players involved in that whole network and stuff like that. So the Hollywood industry, the politicians, the rich, the elite, the famous, all these people, are all, a lot of them, are involved in that kind of stuff. And it's it's just amazing. But anyways, I guess I'm gonna end it here. If you guys wanna, you know, contact me, go on my Instagram links below. Also add me on Twitter, add me on Rumble. I upload a lot of good stuff on Rumble as well. Definitely. Um, if you want links on, by Whitney Webb and all that, she just drops a lot of truth bombs on that, man. She exposes a lot of stuff, the whole Epstein issue and everything. Um, it's a dark industry. It's it's bad. It's evil. It's satanic. Satanic. You start digging into this whole secret societies and the rich and the elite, and you'll find out a lot of them are into this satanic stuff. And what happens is there's an agenda, and even as a Christian, there's it's a satanic agenda. Um, what I think is the demons, the demonic, they're kind of like energy vampires, and I guess they like innocence, and that's why they go after innocence, um, and they thrive off that. And I think these demons who embody people, right? People who are involved in all this kind of stuff, they 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 uh, they like destroying lives. They like destroying innocence out there, you know. But it's definitely a satanic agenda. It's demonic, and as Christians, we should be exposing this kind of corruption, that's going on in this world, and yeah, it's just expose it as much as you can, and it's just wickedness, Anyways, well, I guess I'm gonna end it here. Go out and see that movie, Sound of Freedom. That was just my little spin and twist, take on the whole movie. It gets deeper, but if you're new to this whole topic and issue, go see it. It's just the tip of the iceberg. It gets deeper than that. I mean, the way I am is you gotta even study the secret societies, the demonic adrenochrome, human ritual, cannibalistic rituals, and human sacrifice, Satanism, demonology, the elites, all that kind of stuff. Um, it gets pretty evil out there, and we need people out here exposing this evil and putting a stop to it as well. Anyways, well, I'm gonna let you guys go. You guys have a good day. Go out and tell others about it, and you know, expose this, educate people on this, and get involved in supporting the cause. Anyways, well, this is the Conscious Chicano, and I'm out.